There's a quiet weight that sits in the chest of those who have achieved everything the world promised would make them happy. They have climbed, earned, and won. Yet a hollow echo lingers where satisfaction should be. Smiles feel rehearsed. Celebrations fade too quickly, and the applause of others rarely reaches inside. It's not failure they feel. It's a misalignment, a subtle disconnect between the milestones they've conquered and the self they've left behind. In the stillness, when no one is watching, they confront a truth everyone else overlooks. Achievement alone can never fill the spaces inside. From the outside, life looks effortless. Offices gleam with glass and steel, calendars overflow with meetings, invitations, and accolades. People point, nod, admire. They see the trophies, the corner office, the perfect Instagram posts, the milestones checked off like badges of honor. The world calls it success. Friends and strangers alike interpret it as fulfillment, as proof that life has been mastered. Yet, within the quiet corridors of the mind, a different rhythm hums, persistent, subtle, almost imperceptible. There is a silence that no conference room can fill, a hollow echo behind every congratulatory message, a space untouched by applause. The milestones are real, the victories undeniable, but they exist in a sphere separate from the self that longs for presence, for depth, for a life that feels truly lived. It is a paradox many never speak of, to achieve everything the world values, yet feel that the self, the soft, tender, vulnerable self, has been left waiting somewhere in the shadows. This is the surface of success, dazzling, admired, but disconnected. It gleams because it is visible, measurable, and celebrated. Yet it cannot touch the invisible inner world, the nuanced terrain of emotions, meaning, and authenticity. The question quietly arises, for all the climbing, all the striving, all the winning, why does the hollowness persist, pressing gently, insistently, like a weight no one can see? Even as the world applauds, a subtle dissonance lingers. Life continues, milestones accumulate, and yet a quiet disconnect spreads like a slow fog over the soul. It is not the loud pain of failure, nor the sharp sting of loss, but a muted emptiness that whispers in every pause between accomplishments. Conversations feel distant, laughter echoes hollowly, and achievements arrive with a fleeting thrill that dissolves almost instantly. This disconnection is invisible to others because it is internal, woven into the textures of thought and feeling. People notice the smiles, the polished social appearances, the accolades, but no one sees the moments when the mind drifts, when a private reflection surfaces. Is this all there is? The body remembers the tension of unspoken thoughts. The heart recalls the longing for resonance, for a connection that transcends the metrics of success. It is a strange paradox to be fully recognized outwardly, yet profoundly unknown inwardly. The soul begins to feel like a guest in its own life, present in form but absent in essence. Even the simplest joys, a quiet meal, a walk in the evening, the laughter of a loved one, arrive shadowed by the awareness that something fundamental is missing. The disconnection is not a failure of effort or skill, it is a misalignment, a subtle erosion of self that accumulates silently alongside every accolade. The quiet disconnection is not sudden. It grows slowly, unnoticed at first, until one day the silence becomes too loud to ignore. It is here, in these fleeting moments of stillness, that the hollowness makes itself known, and the realization emerges. The life built outwardly does not always reach inward. response to this quiet disconnection, a mask begins to form. It is subtle at first, a slight tilt of the smile, a carefully measured word, a laugh that doesn't quite reach the eyes. Over time, it becomes a second skin, a layer of perfection and composure that shields the emptiness beneath. The mask of fulfillment is crafted with intention. It signals to the world that everything is fine, that the climb, the effort, the struggle, it all amounts to joy, to contentment, to completeness. Yet the mask is fragile because it is not real. Behind it, the self waits, watching, aware of the hollow spaces the mask cannot cover. The mask is convincing to outsiders because it performs flawlessly, responding to expectation with polish, responding to praise with gratitude. But internally, it creates a strange tension. The more one performs satisfaction, the more the inner void asserts itself. The mask, meant to protect, also isolates. It hides vulnerability from those who might understand, leaving the self unshared, unrecognized, and quietly aching. People who wear this mask often mistake external admiration for internal fulfillment. Compliments, promotions, and accolades become temporary anesthetics, soothing the hollow spaces just long enough to keep moving. Yet the mask cannot sustain life. It cannot heal the subtle fracture between who one is and who one appears to be. Every interaction under the mask deepens the sense of performance, the sense that the self is always just slightly out of reach, always waiting behind a door that refuses to open. It is the paradox of high achievement. The very traits that build success, discipline, focus, charisma, and resilience, also reinforce the mask. They allow the world to see competence, confidence, and fulfillment, while the self silently asks for something deeper, something that cannot be measured, earned, or displayed. The mask of fulfillment becomes a habitual presence, a quiet companion that both protects and isolates until one day it can no longer contain the longing for authenticity. Every victory carries a hidden cost. The late nights, the relentless striving, the sacrifices made in the name of progress, they accumulate as an emotional debt, often invisible to the world. Ambition demands more than energy. It asks for attention, presence, and the surrender of self to a higher ideal. And while the accolades pile up, the quiet ledger of the soul grows heavier. This emotional debt is subtle. It does not shout, it whispers. It lives in the skipped conversations, the postponed moments of reflection, the unattended feelings that gather like dust in corners of the mind. Every deadline met, every goal achieved, every milestone reached is paid for with pieces of emotional presence that slip away unnoticed. Relationships strain under the weight. Creativity dulls, and joy becomes conditional, tied to the next success, rather than experienced in the present. Ambition, when unexamined, becomes a contract with the self that promises growth and recognition while quietly withdrawing emotional sustenance. It rewards effort with status, but does not fill the spaces longing for resonance, for softness, for connection. The hollowness grows not because achievement fails, but because the inner world has been deferred, postponed, and neglected in the pursuit of external validation. Over time, the emotional debt compounds. People find themselves at the pinnacle of success, yet emotionally impoverished, wondering why the triumphs they once imagined would feel glorious instead arrive with a strange numbness. The pursuit of achievement has become a ledger of loss, not in tangible terms, but in the quiet erosion of feelings, presence, and self-recognition that ambition silently exacts. Beneath every achievement, unseen forces hum quietly. guiding decisions and shaping the path forward. Early conditioning, subtle expectations, and the echoes of childhood messages intertwine to form subconscious drivers that often go unnoticed. People believe they are climbing out of desire, ambition, or purpose, but much of their momentum is propelled by invisible strings woven long before they understood themselves. These subconscious drivers are neither inherently good nor bad. They are simply patterns, formed in the crucible of early experiences. The parent who praised accomplishment but ignored emotion. The environment that rewarded perfection and punished hesitation. The subtle societal whispers that equate worth with output. Over time, these patterns solidify into an inner compass, one that points toward achievement, recognition, and outward success, even when these goals no longer resonate with the authentic self. The danger lies in the invisibility. The self follows these drivers blindly, mistaking compliance for fulfillment. Every promotion, every accolade, every tangible reward confirms the validity of the path, even as the hollow spaces within grow. The subconscious quietly reinforces the cycle. Achieve, gain recognition, feel temporary relief, continue striving. Each action feels necessary, rational, and deserved, yet it often bypasses the true desires of the heart. It is here that the paradox deepens. The very patterns that allow people to excel also imprison them in a loop of disconnection. The mind rationalizes, the world applauds, and yet the soul feels the emptiness of a journey guided by unseen hands, chasing a version of success that was never chosen consciously. Understanding these subconscious drivers is not about blame, it is about recognition, the first step toward reclaiming agency and reconnecting achievement with authentic inner fulfillment. For those who reach high levels of success, external approval becomes a subtle currency, a temporary balm for the hollowness inside. Every compliment, accolade, or public acknowledgement is like a drop of water in a vast, dry expanse, momentarily soothing, yet never enough to quench the deeper thirst for meaning. People begin to measure themselves through the gaze of others, unconsciously asking, "Am I enough? Do they see me? Will they approve?" This reliance on external validation creates a paradoxical trap. The more one seeks approval, the more fleeting it becomes. Praise is never permanent. Admiration fades, recognition is brief, and the applause of others rarely reaches the inner self. In chasing these reflections, the self becomes a mirror for everyone else's expectations, bending, performing, and molding to fit an image that feels acceptable. Every act of recognition is both a reward and a reminder. Satisfaction lies outside, never inside. The emotional cost is profound. Moments of authentic presence are sacrificed for moments that perform well in public eyes. The subtle voice of intuition, the whisper of inner desire, is often ignored in favor of gestures that please, impress, or maintain status. Over time, the dependence on external approval deepens the hollow feeling, creating a life that looks polished on the surface but vibrates with quiet emptiness beneath. This is the quiet addiction of those who have achieved much. They learn to crave acknowledgement, applause, and admiration, mistaking it for fulfillment. And yet the self knows deep down that the hollow cannot be filled by anything outside. Not money, not titles, not praise, only by reconnecting to what is authentic, private, and internally resonant. A pattern emerges almost imperceptibly. Achieve, celebrate briefly, feel empty, strive harder. A loop that reinforces itself with each cycle. The high of accomplishment fades faster than anticipated, leaving behind the same hollow echo as before. This is the hollow achievement loop, a silent rhythm that drives so many without their conscious awareness. The loop is fueled by temporary relief. Each milestone offers a fleeting sense of satisfaction, a whisper of fulfillment, only for it to dissipate almost immediately. The emptiness returns, subtle but persistent, prompting another surge of effort. The mind convinces itself that the next promotion, the next award, the next recognition will finally satisfy the void. Yet the inner hollowness is never addressed, only postponed. Over time, the hollow achievement loop can feel like inevitability. It becomes habitual, almost automatic. The self begins to equate motion with meaning, believing that constant doing will eventually translate into being. But the truth lies beneath the momentum. No matter how many accolades are collected, the disconnection persists until the inner work begins. And so the cycle continues, silently shaping the contours of life. The energy that fuels the loop is immense. Discipline, focus, sacrifice. Yet it often bypasses the parts of the self that crave emotional presence and inner coherence. The hollow achievement loop is not a failure of ambition. It is a symptom of misalignment, a quiet reminder that external success alone cannot cultivate the fulfillment the soul seeks. While the mind races from milestone to milestone, the body quietly archives the cost. It remembers the tension in the shoulders during late nights of work, the shallow breaths taken in moments of pressure, the subtle aches that accumulate from unacknowledged stress. The body is never fooled by the mask of success. It absorbs the unexpressed emotions, storing fatigue, anxiety, and subtle unrest like a hidden ledger. Emotional disconnection is never purely mental. It manifests in heartbeats that flutter without reason, in knots of tension that linger long after the work is done, and a sense of being off, even amidst apparent achievement. The hollow self communicates through these somatic whispers, hinting that something within has been deferred, ignored, or left behind. Often the physical discomfort goes unnoticed, dismissed as a side effect of busyness or age. Yet it is the body's way of insisting on recognition, a gentle insistence that the self is not aligned with the life it occupies. The hollow is not just emotional, it is embodied, etched into the very structure of being. In these quiet moments, a restless night, a racing heartbeat, a sudden fatigue, the dissonance between external success and internal emptiness becomes undeniable. The body remembers what the mind prefers to ignore, the cost of achieving without feeling, of moving through life while leaving presence behind, of accumulating accolades while neglecting the tender, vital core of self. Ignoring the inner self comes at a cost that is often invisible until it can no longer be denied. Each day spent pursuing external markers of success without attending to emotional needs, desires, and alignment chips away at the sense of wholeness. Life, though outwardly impressive, begins to feel hollow, like a structure built with fine materials but lacking foundation. The price is cumulative. Quiet dissatisfaction turns into subtle resentment. Moments of joy become fleeting, and relationships strain under the weight of absence. Even achievements that once sparked excitement now feel muted, as if the soul has grown deaf to applause. The mind rationalizes, the world celebrates, and yet the inner self carries the quiet burden of neglect. This misalignment also shapes choices. Decisions are guided by expectation, obligation, or subconscious drivers, rather than authentic desire. Even leisure becomes a performance,
Even relationships can feel transactional, aimed at maintaining appearances rather than nourishing the heart. Over time, the disconnect solidifies into a pervasive sense of being off, of moving through life as an observer rather than a participant. The true cost of ignoring inner alignment is not failure, but the erosion of presence, vitality, and meaning. It's the slow fading of the self into shadows behind achievements, a quiet surrender of authenticity in exchange for recognition and external reward. For those who feel hollow despite their success, this is the invisible toll that shapes the rhythm of their existence, urging them, if only subtly, to look inward and reclaim the life that resonates with the core of who they are.
Amidst the relentless momentum, there are flashes of clarity, brief, quiet moments when the hollow becomes undeniable. It might arrive in the stillness of a midnight room, when the applause has faded and the trophies are dusted but unmeaningful. It might appear in a glance at a loved one, when connection feels strained, or in a solitary walk where the mind cannot escape the persistent question, is this all there is? These moments are fleeting yet profound. They pierce the carefully constructed illusion of fulfillment, revealing the disconnect between what has been achieved and what is truly felt. The hollow echoes loudest here, in silence, in reflection, in spaces the world cannot enter. It is often unsettling, a confrontation with the truth that cannot be avoided through accolades, recognition, or achievement. Yet these moments also carry a quiet gift. They're the first hint that something can change, that awareness itself is the doorway to realignment. The brief recognition of emptiness awakens curiosity about the inner self, prompting questions about alignment, presence, and authenticity. Though fleeting, these moments plant seeds, subtle reminders that beneath the surface of success lies the potential for something deeper, a life not measured by accolades, but by resonance, coherence, and self-connection. In these flashes, the self whispers its truth, asking to be seen, acknowledged, and finally integrated into the life it inhabits. It is here, in these silent awakenings, that the journey toward inner fulfillment quietly begins.
Reconnection is never loud or dramatic. It begins with small, almost imperceptible acts. Noticing the tension in a shoulder, naming a feeling that was pushed aside, pausing long enough to hear the whisper of the inner self. It requires turning attention inward, toward the parts of life that have been deferred in the pursuit of external validation. It is not about abandoning ambition or achievement, but about aligning them with the rhythm of the self. This inner work is subtle, yet relentless. It involves confronting uncomfortable truths, the ways the mask of fulfillment has been worn, the patterns of people-pleasing and subconscious striving, and the habitual ignoring of emotional needs. It is the act of witnessing one's own life without judgment, seeing both the accomplishments and the hollow spaces, and acknowledging that both coexist. Reconnection demands patience and courage. It is a negotiation with the self, listening before acting, feeling before performing, allowing presence to guide action rather than expectation. It is learning to move through life with awareness of both internal and external worlds, to let achievement serve the self rather than replace it. Each conscious act, a pause, a reflection, an alignment with inner values, is a small reclamation of wholeness.
In this work, people discover that the hollowness is not a flaw, but a signal, a guide, pointing toward areas neglected, emotions deferred, and desires suppressed. By attending to these inner signals, the self gradually begins to harmonize with achievement, creating a foundation where fulfillment can coexist with success.
There comes a quiet turning point when the chase for accolades begins to lose its gravity, when the trophies, titles, and milestones no longer dominate the inner landscape. The hollow begins to soften, not because external success has diminished, but because attention has shifted inward. Meaning, subtle and profound, starts to emerge where emptiness once lingered. Meaning is not found in the next promotion, the next award, or the admiration of others. It is found in presence, in noticing the texture of life, the rhythm of breath, the currents of emotion that rise and fall without judgment. It is found in the alignment of action with authentic desire, the harmony between ambition and the self that feels deeply known and seen. Achievement becomes a companion rather than a master, serving as a reflection of inner coherence instead of a mask to cover absence. Those who have walked the path from hollow success to inner residence recognize that life's depth cannot be measured by external markers alone. The quiet satisfaction that emerges is not loud or conspicuous. It is a subtle, steady energy that hums beneath the surface, filling spaces once hollow with presence, authenticity, and connection. The journey does not end with a single revelation. It unfolds continuously in choices, attention, and the daily act of listening to the self. In this space, fulfillment is no longer conditional. It is not borrowed from the applause of others, nor constructed from metrics of performance. It is born from alignment, from integrating achievement with presence, from allowing life to resonate through both the accomplishments and the inner world. Beyond achievement lies a quiet richness, a life where success and meaning coexist, where the hollow spaces are finally met, acknowledged, and transformed into fullness.